of September. I'd like to thank all of you for attending, and those of you that may be watching at home, welcome. We'll try and keep it to a tight timescale tonight. We've got quite an interesting agenda. The main focus will be looking at phase 1 of the SU, Sustainable Urban Extension, i.e. 4,000 houses, and someone from representing Homes England has kindly come here this evening and we'll do a brief presentation how we're going to go forward, and obviously it's open to some questions from yourselves. So we can move forward. Item 1, apologies for absence. So I've had Councillor Ashby, Councillor Gray, and Mary Ridgway. Anyone else aware of any of that? I've not heard from Nicola. Okay. Item 2, declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations they wish to report? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3, public participation. I've 10 minutes for this, so there's one member of the public.
The question I was going to ask might well be covered by what's happening later on.
Okay, yeah.
Will there be a chance to maybe raise a question later?
Yeah.
If not, I'll shut up then.
Yeah, no, so what I propose is during that presentation, Joe, it's fine with you.
Yeah.
We'll do questions and answers during that.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine.
All right, thank you. I've not received any. The office has received any. No. And again, at the end of under any other business, I'll people to raise some questions. Yes. Okay.
If we're going to allow public participation during item 5, we'll have to adjourn. No, you won't. Don't do that anymore. Oh yeah, no, AMP. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just thinking because we had that at our last full council meeting as well. I just want to make sure.
No, thank you for
That's fine.
keeping us on our toes.
That's all right.
We'd find a way around it, but no, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to item 4, minutes of the last meeting held on the 16th of August. Anyone got any comments? Page 1. Page 2. I'll come to the actions at the end. Let's just get the next page. Page 3. Page 4. Okay, so next time to ask someone to propose that section. Mr. Westby, Mr. Westby, show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Just running through the actions, if I may. First one with regards to Rosecroft and School and parking. I believe you've had a update on that.
I can give a little update on that at the moment if you want me to.
Yeah,
this is right time, Chair. We have been in touch with Norfolk County Council over Rosecroft, as many of you are aware. We have been doing this in coordination with our district and county councillors and have focused the attention on having the drop-off loop opened, particularly the school site, so as to alleviate the congestion that we're seeing in the morning and increase the safety of the site, particularly for children who are accessing the school. The latest update I have is that members of the education team from Norfolk County Council have met with the head teacher of the school last Tuesday. We were notified on the Monday before that they were having this meeting. I reiterated the position of the town council, and with the help of Councillor Tyra, provided the documents relevant to the planning consent for the site, which made mention of the drop-off loop and how at the moment that condition was not being met. I asked that the Norfolk County Council team meeting with the school to report back to myself, and despite several requests, I have not had any response yet. So we'll continue that course of action.
Neighbourhood contacted Councillor Oliver.
He was included in all the correspondence.
Okay,
so far.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, thanks, Phil. Well, obviously, you know, it's a touchy subject, but we'll keep on top of that. And yes,
It has been a subject that's been discussed in the past week on the community side. And myself, and I think Luke did say, please come along to these meetings or read the minutes, because it's the old town council aren't doing anything, and sort of said, well, the town council are trying very hard to do something. So I don't know if you'll be in a position to put something out publicly about progress to date, or, you know, because not everyone reads the community sites, but they were getting a bit in a tiz last week about it.
Well, now that we have an events and communication
We can-
committee, it may be well if we put a statement out at some point, but I was allowing Norfolk County Council to respond following the meeting. So
Yeah.
once we have a response from that, we will then do an update statement, if that's
Yeah.
okay with yourselves.
Yeah, that would be perfect, just to keep the community involved or up to date that this is an ongoing thing, that, you know, we're not just ignoring.
and I think moving forward with the events and comms group, well, events primarily. Yes, we do need to be agile in terms of updating the community, but before we do, let's think carefully words and not
We'll leave that to
herd
Michelle.
running down.
When
But that's part of that committee
Yeah.
to set out the protocols and whatever. So fantastic, we will get that.
it needs to just be a matter of fact letter rather than trying to be too
Update,
political on
yeah.
that, and update on facts of where we are.
Yeah.
We do need to build pressure. I'm hoping for a breakthrough. We've made the case as forcefully as we can, as unitedly as we can. So it's really in their court to get sorted out.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. The second action is the local market. Now, I don't know if you want to pick this up to the revised events committee, or if you just want to have any comments at this stage.
I think with the planning for the Apple Day event, and which is obviously market led,
Yeah,
and also the fact that there's the local produce store that Debbie's brought to us as well, it probably would make more sense for it to now fall into the events and communications committee. I think
Sounds like a proposal.
I have to propose it.
I can second that. Yeah. Those in favour? Next one, Decoy Common. If I'll pick that up on the agenda, I've got sore dates. It's not hugely exciting, but we have had updates. I'll pick that up then. Recreation ground.
It's on the agenda.
That's on the agenda. Park green space strategy. Again, that might come under the discussion with Sue now it fits into the wider areas, unless Tabby, you've got any good comments you want to raise at this stage.
No, I'll wait
No,
until we
okay,
discuss
great,
it on the
Thank
agenda.
you. Marvellous. So that's the minutes concluded. And then perhaps the most exciting part. Sorry, Joel. So we put this on. I know it's been a long time coming. Probably a lot of frustrations. They want to clear what's going on. This tends to happen with planning and major developments, but there is progress. We had a brief at full council meeting a couple of weeks ago. An update from Homes England and from Joel. And Joel's kindly returned this evening, and the intention is that every AMP, unless something drastic happens, you'll be attending these meetings with updates and what have you. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll be advising more, let's say, concrete engagements and communications and protocols with yourselves of engagement. But I thought it'd be useful for Joel, who's from MPC, as I say, who's being appointed to the CIS-20 on comms engagement and consultation. Just give a brief overview where we're at, what the plan is, what the timescales are, and what we're going to do in the immediate future.
Of course.
So over to you.
Thank you very much. Apologies for those who are at the town council meeting. There might be quite a bit of overlap from what I'm saying tonight, as I did a couple of weeks ago. But very much sort of want to say hello. Thank you for the time, of course, and introduce really Homes England. And obviously, I appreciate it's another sort of project team who spent a lot of years getting used to Ptarmigan when they were promoting the site. So sort of just do a bit of a face to Homes England and what we're doing at the moment. As you can imagine, there's quite a lot going on behind the scenes from a technical point of view. For those of you who aren't aware, Homes England are a government body, and to make sure I don't misquote at all here without Jenny by my side, but they are the government's housing accelerator, essentially. So what they do mean to being in the market in the places where the housing delivery rates need to be improved, and that's how they sort of work their magic. And it's sort of especially those larger schemes like Attleborough SUE where that sort of experience they bring to the table is second to none on that. So obviously a lot's happened since the outline planning permission was granted 2020, March 2020. So Homes England purchased phase one, what essentially is phase one of the site earlier this year, as you're aware. And since then they've put together a technical team, including ourselves, but also Tetra Tech in terms of planning, an ITP for architecture and master planning. So a lot of work has been happening in the background, obviously trying to get our heads around what the outline plan permission entails and actually how to make that a reality. So there's been a lot of that going on at the moment. And as you can imagine, we're quite constrained by the timescale set out from the outline and also part of the contract with Ptarmigan, how that progresses. So a lot of that is happening at the moment. Obviously, they are very tight timescales. We're conscious of that. So what we're trying to do is, as that's been kindly set out already, sort of start introducing ourselves to the community. Started a fortnight ago, but our sort of set piece event to begin with is this Thursday, where we've taken a market stall. So we'll be there from 8 AM till 2. Some of the colleagues across the country are very grateful when we send the diary invite for 8 o'clock on that one. And that's a chance for us to really say hello to the community, explain Homes England's role in that. It's sort of us firing the starting gun, as it were, of our engagements with Attleborough and the wider area. It's a hard thing when there's a lot of technical stuff which is progressing that not a lot can really change, or an input from the public is quite limited. So it's sort of a difficult balance as to how much we sort of engage and don't want to sort of, certainly don't want to overstep our mark. I think the key thing we want to be throughout is transparent and honest. So where there are areas we can take input from yourselves, the town council, the local community, we will make sure we sing that from the rooftops. But where from a technical point of view, it's a bit more challenging for that to happen. Again, we'll be honest about that and say why it is that case. So the program itself is quite sort of fluid at the moment, but sort of set with these key bits and parameters. Essentially, the key bits which are coming forward at the moment are the design code and structuring plan. So it's the first thing that has to happen before anything else progresses. That's all being worked through at the moment. And essentially, we'll be looking to submit before the end of the year, those two elements. They are very, very dry and technical. We will try and sort of, as we progress on these updates at the meetings, but also wider in the community, explain what's happening, what's coming forward, especially when any sort of submission is there. So our ambition is in November to do almost like a reporting back event, where it's a case of what's happened since we first said hello to the community at the market stall. At the market stall, we've got a few banners just to explain that in a bit more detail, but also feedback forms just to try and get people's input from this early stage. So again, we'll be able to report back where people said X was the most important to them. We can explain what we're doing and how that's sort of progressing there. So November's sort of the next one of that, and as I say, the submission back end of November, December for the design code and structure and plan. And then next year, it sort of goes up a gear again, and that's where things are still being worked through what post-Christmas is looking like. But that's where some of the more traditional reserve matters applications will start coming forward, which you'll be a lot more accustomed to. As I say, a lot of the dry technical stuff is this side of Christmas before it carries on, but also moves into traditional reserve matters there. We are launching a web portal, which we will sort of liaise with the town council to how we can make sure we're interlinked on that. But it's fully accessible, screen reader friendly, etc. So we want to try and reach as many areas of the community as possible, a diverse range of opinions. It's always a challenging task, but we've certainly got a few ideas, and that's where we'd like to sort of share those with you at the right time to make sure could we do something different. Is there a group locally we could plug into that we've missed completely or just hasn't got an online presence? So that's a key thing for Homes England and the wider team there. What I thought would be useful, I've brought with me, for some people it might have been a while since, where the SUE is and what parts we are talking about in terms of Homes England. So essentially on this map, the orange area is the whole of the SUE, and then the area in red is Homes England, or as I say, sort of phase one, which is sorry. So as you can see, it's sort of that middle parcel just to the right-hand side, and that's the bit that's working on. But the design code and technical elements will cover other bits and pieces. But that's very, very technical. So we can go into that a bit more detail as that's progressed to a stage when we're able to sort of confidently talk about that. And as I say, it's about building upon the work that's taken place before. I don't need to think for a moment that if you've got involved over all the years with Ptarmigan and JTP with the engagement and bring forward the outline application, it's not a case of, well, that was a waste of time. We have taken the time to sort of go through what comments were put in by the local residents and how that's factored our plans as well. So please see this as an extension of that engagement. And we are sort of listening mode as much as anything. We're open to ideas. We're very much looking for this to be a two-way relationship. And hopefully by attending the meetings on a monthly basis, plug into understanding what the key concerns and bits are locally. For example, on the agenda tonight, very interested to hear what the items that we mentioned. You've also got 20-minute neighbourhoods. It'd be lovely to hear what your current thinking is on that. As I say, I won't have all the answers. I've got the technical team behind me to rely upon, but if I can, I will. If I can't, obviously, please do come along to the market stall on Thursday where we will have our technical colleagues with us. Or if not, I can get back in touch and drop you an email with an answer afterwards, in all honesty. So hopefully that was a relatively quick summary and not too boring from last time as well, repeating what I said.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Quite a vast area, lots going on. I know many of you got many questions, so quite happy to open the floor and let's just take it forward. So yes, Debbie.
You're publicising this for Thursday, are you? Do we need to do anything? Or are you?
Funnily enough, that's what I will try and grab at the end to have that discussion. We've put a press release out. We don't want it to be too much of getting everyone down because, as I say, there's not a lot we can say. So we want it to be quite organic with people just shopping at the market anyway or passing by. But it'd be great just this week just to plug in with that. We will look to have a social media presence once the web portal is launched. But again, it's hard to launch something when there's limited what we can say is nothing exciting or glamorous to kick off at this stage. So if we could pick that up separately.
My thoughts are that it's important that the public know that you're working with us.
Yes.
Rather than, I appreciate you having your own portal and we have ours, but I think there needs to be some sort of crossover from the get-go so that people understand, you know,
Definitely.
the basics, that it's government led and it is,
Yeah.
you know.
No, definitely. We've just sort of, as of today, pretty much got their sign up on the web portal, so it's almost like the perfect time to talk about that.
And the way we looked at that, just to help plug into that in the conversations we've had, with Homes England is that we'll be utilising the comms team to help promote the portal. You know, that's the medium by which we need this information and the correspondence to happen. So it's a signposting and using the community social media sites to help assist.
Yes, Vera.
I'm happy to swear, Link Road.
If there was one word I didn't want to hear mentioned. It's a difficult one, in all honesty. I think on Thursday we can have a bit of more of a, not necessarily a full answer for you, because it very much is still a work in progress, but it is being worked upon and looked at. So what I suggest is if you are around on Thursday, when my technical colleagues are with me, I will make sure that we can provide an answer for you on that.
Shall I come with my own banner?
No, I'll make a note of it. We'll take it from there. But, no, that's noted.
Thank you.
But I think that's an interesting point, because the discussion we've had previously is both Homes England and even ourselves as Town Council need to be totally honest and open and transparent about what you can and cannot do and what's going to happen in timescale. The link road is going to take a long time. You, within your red line, can only do so much. It's not committed to doing the whole link road. And this is where it can get complicated. People saying, why can't we just do that? Well, in reality, it doesn't work like that. But I think we need to be honest, open and transparent, say, we're working with national government policies, national government funding, county council, district council, all of those things. This is how it's going to be, and this is all that's going to happen in this first phase.
Exactly, and as I say, you may think I'm popping you off, but there are a lot of technical meetings taking place at the moment, looking at all sorts of possibilities, working through everything. As much as there was an outline permission granted with X written down on a map, once somebody else comes along and has another look at it, it always has to be re-examined and looked at again. So that is taking place, and we'll like to explore that more with you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Yes, Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Burrows, and I'm chair of ATCare, which is the health aspects and development. Have you and are you communicating with the CCG and the potential plans that they have?
For the event on Thursday, or more widely?
In a wider form.
I think they're on, so we've got a very long list of stakeholders. It certainly rings a bell, but it'd be great to sort of chat offline.
I value that very much. But you did start your presentation saying that this Thursday meeting is very important to hear what people's greatest concerns were. And having been involved with the neighbourhood plan since early on, the two main concerns are, which you must have, and honestly, saying we've been going along government guidelines would just make people drift off. You've got to have answers, whatever they are, and the most diplomatic for people, because the two key things that are important to the people of Attleborough are, one, the link road, and the second is the linear park. They were the two things that were headlined throughout the neighbourhood plan. I think everybody involved in it with agreed. But the things that really roused public interest, oh yes, schools came, health came, but the thing that really appealed and set people on fire was the linear park. And a lot of the developments that have taken place within Attleborough certainly have had a pathway through them. But as a cyclist, I can tell you, you need to have 3D vision, because it's just an excuse for little passageways. It isn't a park, it isn't a place that people can walk. And as a town, we're very short of that. And I think that you must be, I would advise you to be prepared to answer those sort of topics for me.
No, definitely, having spent the time to trawl through every single comment on the planning portal and from the statement of community involvement from the outline, I think it was clear, should we say, that the spine road was number one, or the link road. We have got answers sort of prepared as it were for Thursday, but they're still being not worked up. But we want to make sure we say the right thing at this stage, not overpromise, etc., which is why I thought that's a Thursday one. In terms of linear park, that is still very much a central theme. We're trying to make as much of that as possible. Again, we're aware that that was a key point that the public bought into from the outline stage. So we're looking as far as possible to build upon that. So again, still too early to sort of come fully public with it, but hopefully at these monthly updates, each time you'll see more and more information being presented once we've got to that stage. So all I can say at this point is I wouldn't worry too much about that. We're aligned in our thinking on that.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add to that? I mean, early on in the conversations we've had over the last few months, it's been, clearly communicated to Homes England and positively received as well. That as we go forward, we've got the AMP with us, and we've got these subgroups within the AMP. So in terms of you tapping into what's the thought process, what are the issues, there's people within the community who've done an awful lot of work. And rather than you set your own groups up of what's this, that, and the other, it comes through this committee. So, like yourself, Elizabeth, in terms of ACCO and the health and social care group, that will be direct communications with Homes England. In terms of design, sustainability and environment with Mary, there'll be direct contact with Homes England. That's how we're going to manage this. So nothing falls between poles, whatever the expression is. So, and I think we've agreed that strategy going forward. So, nothing is lost or ignored. It's the how do we address it? Can it be done? Yes. If it can't be done, why not? Yeah. At this stage, and there's probably a lot of things like Linear Park that there's continued discussions with Ptarmigan going forward because you've just got a limited amount of. I'm looking at that in terms of Linear Park. It barely touches what I think the wider aspirations are, but nevertheless, it's setting those principles in terms of design code and environmental and everything else. That the rest of the development needs to follow as per the basis.
And as I said at the start, what we've tried to be as honest and open as possible. What I wouldn't want to do is overpromise and underdeliver. So I appreciate it might be frustrating to hear. We'll come back to that. But I'd rather once we give an answer, it be an answer and take it from there rather than say something and change it the next time.
An obvious ones at this early stage is, do we need a plot of land for further health facilities? Is that going to be accommodated in phase one? What we do about open space, play areas, etc., etc. So those fundamentals, which are still important to the community, the big ticket items are there. But these practical ones that can be delivered quickly will be communicated through and hopefully incorporated into the plans.
Yeah.
And there'll be a whole range of different aspects in terms of ownership, in terms of revised 106 agreements, and how do we work? It'll be in there. Has anyone got any other questions? Come all this way. Stunning. Nigel,
My name,
you are.
as the public,
The one voice, right?
the one public. I hear your comment about there are certain things you can and can't say. My only comment to you would be, if you do say them, keep them in plain English. Don't put legalese in because people glaze over.
On that point, that's our job. That's what it's possible, and we're making everything accessible as possible. So it's about that simple language.
I might be asking the wrong person the right question. If I have to come back to you, we're talking about phase one, and we're talking about things for the end of this year and going forward. When are we actually likely to see ground being broken?
I think it's comfortable to say latter half of next year.
And what's the volume we're looking at putting on that piece of land?
The bits in red,
Yeah, at this stage.
around the 1,000 mark.
Your big challenge will be for the community, I would predict, will be the volume of congestion, traffic that will draw through the town. Because there are times now where we drive to a halt for the smallest of thing. I know at one point, I think very early doors, it was muttered whether they could make the best door A11 exit both ways.
Yeah.
But that, I think, will be one of the massive challenges you're going to look at. And that link road, as much as it's a pie in the sky, with respect to what it sounds like, that's going to be a massive, massive thing.
And I think that's where, sorry, no. I think that's where this Thursday's event sort of to kick off. And as all that technical bit's still progressing, when we do our reporting back event in November, that's when we'll have some punchy answers on the questions that have been raised, where we'll be able to be in a better position.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, but bear in mind, this has been talked about for so long, and we're talking potentially 12 months, 14 months before we start breaking ground. Houses don't take that long to build, but they attract an awful lot of building traffic. And there's a lot of big stuff coming through a very small town.
If I can just add to that from a technical point of view,
Yeah.
and I suspect Homes England can justifiably hide behind previous technical reports that Brecon with the County Council Group, is the idea of £4.5 million infrastructure was to provide the capacity.
So I'm laughing.
I know, as a transport planner, I can see why. However, technically, it's been modelled to demonstrate that you can get 1,200 houses away before you need the link road. And that's the whole premise of this development now. As a member of the public, you see what happens every day. Do you believe that or not? However, that's been proved.
Well,
So, but the key issue, Nigel, I think it will be a discussion with you, is the construction phase and the traffic and how that managed in terms of hours, operations, everything else.
well, you talk about that now, and you then go back to the conversation we had about the congestion around road cost, etc. All you are doing is you are building in a problem, I would suspect. A problem you're going to have to overcome, because you have to have housing, but you're going to build this other problem.
Well, all we can do is go back to the County Council and Brecon and said you have intimated that you're willing to front load the 18, 20 million pounds for the link road. Where are you in that conversation?
Yeah.
It's Brecon and Norfolk County Council and potentially the LEP that need to address them.
No,
We'll push that as part of, you know, and I think it's fair to say Attleborough, you know, my experience within the region professionally is Attleborough is one of a very, very small number of towns and settlements that actually, when I say welcoming developments, yes, there's been concerns, but overall it's okay, we'll support it if A, B, C, D, F. It's not NIMBYism. However, I think as you break ground, that's the time to say we've done our bit, taking the pain, quite a lot of pain. You County Council, you Brecon, what are you doing? You know, ease that pain.
I would echo the fact that we haven't fought hard against it because there's a need.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where need outweighs.
Yeah.
You've had your time.
But good points. Good points.
And of course, we are liaising a lot with county and district on that.
Elizabeth.
I was just going to say, I'm correct, am I not, that Terry Cracknell, the late member of this group, had gone through quite long discussions with Norfolk County Council, and he'd stimulated a commitment by them, and I think district councillors must be aware of that, because that had started at county level, because he stormed County Hall, didn't he? And then that came down to district level, and there had been a commitment that when you say front load, I'm terribly sorry, I'm one of the ignorant ones that has to unravel some of the language what executive people use. But when you mean front loading, does that mean they would give you a loan? Is that what that meant? Oh, right.
They'll pay for it and then recoup the
Yes,
money back.
that's how I interpreted that, but that's certainly there had been a commitment that was very keenly and unanimously agreed at county hall level, and that's some years ago, and I think they'd be worth pursuing that. I would have thought there must be notes on that, and that was limited at a previous meeting to this group.
Yes.
Yeah, the event that keeps getting mentioned on Thursday, is that for public engagement?
Yes, we're just market stall.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how have you promoted and advertised that, just so you have the best possible outcome?
So far, we've press release went out last week. So I think that went up over the weekend of that. And then after this meeting, the idea was to ask the town council to try and push it on social media. As I said, moving forward, we are going to launch our own social media channels and have the web portal where we can link in and promote that way. But it's a fine balance, and we need to put our head above the parapet at some point and sort of start it gradually. And then for the November event, will be sort of all singing, all dancing. So it'd be great if we can get the town council support on that to just push that message around that we're here and open the conversation.
We'll pick that up tomorrow. Get something again.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry, Andy.
I mean, my other concern regarding the construction phase is, threefold. One, the parcel of land that's been developed is about as far away from serious infrastructure that you can get. Norwich Road development is going to be going ahead at exactly the same time. And there's still the residual development down on London Road as well, so the whole town is going to get absolutely gridlocked.
On the back of that, when do our 1,200 houses kick in for this link road, in theory, that we've sort of been promised maybe loan money for? Well, we've got a bit going on here, a bit going on there, there's housing going over here.
Well, this is the complexity. The 1,200 houses is phase 1, so not
So it's
Norwich
tied
Road.
into
It's
purely.
not Norwich Road, it's not London Road.
Okay,
It's
fine. That's fine.
It's housing numbers. It's a little bit bizarre.
Okay, then I would echo, no, that's good.
It needs some careful thinking about it.
And also communication to make it
Absolutely.
clear.
Yeah, we've had this look before, and I'm going to road development, which was a nightmare, frankly, with the town centre. And if we're having 3 potential developments going on at the same time, it's going to be really good fun. Well, the businesses in the town centre, well, thank you.
Yeah, we do need to pick it up, and it would aid enormously, even if it wasn't a full designed, constructed link road, but, well, the bridges can take ages anyway, but even dirt track to get the truck in there. It's a discussion we need with Brecon and the highways, because it's their responsibility, they need to do this, we just need to push it. Yes, Debbie.
Do we have any idea of the completion date for the London Road development? I mean, they must be getting towards the end of that now.
The orbit one,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, and I can find out. But if you work on 80 houses a year,
Mm.
so 350, 360 divided by 80. 4 years. That's going to be one. I mean, Taylor Wimpey is still not finished.
That's what I'm talking about, Taylor Wimpey.
All right, I
Yeah,
thought you were about the one further down the orbit.
No, not the orbit, the Taylor Wimpey, but round there across.
There's not necessarily an agreed completion date. You have to have a start date, but completion date depends on so many factors. I mean, theoretically planning, if you just dig a hole, put a bit of concrete in it, you comply with your planning permission, and it can stay like that forever. Bizarrely. But we'll find that out. Okay, has anyone got any further questions for?
Oh, just one,
Sorry.
you said you sent the press release to the local press.
Yeah,
Could you let us, as you send press releases, let us see them as well?
course.
So then we know what's
yes.
going to be appearing. And could you do EDP and also the District Express, which is, I don't know, the remap there, and that, because you've got options, you own, you
Yes.
can go close to the wind and upper and all of those. But then you've got a separate company that owns the District Express, which does cover us a very few degrees.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, we'll send over the press
Yeah.
releases moving forward.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Really upfront and honest about the size of the market.
No, don't tell us.
Again, shall I manage
Sorry.
expectations from our end as well? It's very much, imagine 3 roller banners, and it's about us talking like we are now, rather than us putting on some all singing, all dancing event. I can assure you,
Yeah,
it's low key.
Liz is saying that we don't have a particularly big market.
We only have one stall, the fish stall, so don't get too excited and park
Okay.
next to it.
Don't worry about
More
the
room for us
places
though, I'd
to
like to see that. as
That
well.
will improve, but it is only one stall.
It's not something we're working on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? If not, thank you. You're welcome to stay.
I'll stay, yeah, I'd be like to.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
all right.
that's perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for that, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6. So updates on projects, and I've got some more at the end, which I'll come under any other business. In terms of Decoy Common, and there's been copied into emails, the Topos surveyors should be getting the report through to us imminently. So
Survey's been done.
Yeah, survey's been done, so we're probably just pulling that together and report. Once we've done that, that will pass on to Andy to and start coming up with design options. And we'll bring that back to this next meeting and to subgroup for consideration. And again, just to remind you that 106 was secured. In terms of London Road, unfortunately Nicola's not here, but I do know,
Sorry, just going back to Deacon comment.
yeah,
I see a post on Facebook this, I think it's over the weekend, must be the same Monday today, where there'd been like an inquiry about some of the markings down there. I'm assuming that's to do with the survey
Yeah.
that we've had done.
Yeah.
Have we had back from that? Because as well, I looked at the June minutes, obviously to go back to this resident that had the query. And within the minutes, obviously, it was suggested that the comeback from that would be like 3 to 4 weeks to know what was going on.
and that's what we thought of, but that timescale was subject to again 106.
Oh, yeah, it's not a criticism. It's
No,
not
no, no,
criticism,
but it's interesting.
have we heard anything from them?
Well, I've just said we have got emails from surveyors, they're finishing the report off now, so the survey is being done. They'll send us the report, get the topo, and then we can do the design. So it's taken longer, and when we met them on site, because the pressure of ideally the money was meant to be spent, we were told by Beckham initially, and then it was, don't worry about it, you've got it, as long as it's secured against the project. Because the surveyors were overly busy, we said, okay, not overly rushed on this, just when you can fit it in as soon as possible. So I think like a lot of consultants and Andy will know, it's workloads and what have you, things are just lagging behind. But they have done it. We get the report and go to Andy.
Have they gave an indication of when the report will be done? Sorry for all the questions.
Well, 2 weeks ago, they came back and said 90% of the survey has been
Yeah, ultimately they've got a little bit of work to go back to finish off, and then I mean, normally they generate the drawing in.
I'll email them tomorrow and get an update.
Just honestly,
But they
it's
are
just because
conscious.
obviously people have now started asking questions and so since something's happening down there.
Subject to getting it back within the next week. I'll ask for the next meeting.
I'll chase the top end.
James, got time.
Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Just carrying on from Taylor's thing on that Facebook, they just also want to know how many houses have gone on decoy cop.
Oh, actually, while we are talking about decoy, I don't know, this is something to come up. Now so many of the trees have been removed from the obviously roadside, where it's obviously the fence and then the open road. I think there is like a safety concern that if, God forbid, like there was an accident and a car did come off the road, that fence isn't sturdy enough to, I mean, hold back a lot. And I think there's some safety concerns that residents were voicing. I mean, I don't know. I don't even drive, so who am I to say? But I feel like during...
Is that the fence round decoy that's adjacent to the other?
Yeah, so basically it's literally just like a little wooden picket
Yeah,
fence
well,
thing.
I think to be honest, when Andy himself went out and had a look at it, again, why part of the wider project, what can we do to improve decoy conduct? It's that fencing does need improvement. It's a question of whose responsibility is it, who pays for
There's
it.
no time to isn't
No.
I just think
But
it's a bit of a safety concern because before there was the tree line, wasn't there, that would take the brunt of anything, whereas now that's not there. I think there's a bit of concern. So it might just be something to look at and then obviously report back on
Sure.
in due course, but just to say I haven't seen that raised, so
Okay, thank you.
something to consider.
Anyone else got comments on decoy comment? No. Okay, London Road. As I say, Nicola and her subgroup have been looking at this. They've been looking at play equipment and talking with parents and what have you. Unfortunately, Nicola can't be with us this evening, so I'll have to give us an update. But you know, they are conscious this is an imminent project that needs to be rushed.
Yeah, we are expecting initial data back from the first part of their public consultation, group consultation. So that's due at the end of this month, I understand. So certainly by next month's meeting, we'll have some preliminary data that we can start plugging in to get that project moving. Okay.
I would like to say, you know, I think it applies to all of us because all, you know, these are all members of the public giving their time and things crop up like family and holidays and other things that trying to put timescales and stuff, unlike if you're employed a consultant, there's a commitment. I think we have to be a bit mindful of doing their best and, you know, we shouldn't panic. But it is, you know, we all agree this one does need to move very quickly and they're very keen on that, there is pressure on that, so it is progressing.
I'm just going to put the emphasis on this as well, because I know it was discussed at the last meeting, but I just want to make sure there's like absolute clarity that along with the survey and the groups and everything else, that there will be a public consultation that's very well advertised weeks in advance, and the neighbours and everyone who lives in that area and that will be using it will be very much aware of what's happening.
There is a commitment to that, absolutely. And I've made that commitment to the neighbours around as well, that commitment.
Yeah, well, what was agreed with that is that once we've got the club data, we can feed some proposals together. Those proposals would then become the basis for the public consultation as described.
Yes, Heather.
Could I raise again the issue of the subcommittees and seeing a list of the subcommittees and membership, copies of the minutes of their meetings?
Yep.
And could we ask that future proposals are put in writing to the committee, which is an alternative reference?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would also note that even at meetings, proposals are raised on the floor and approved as well. But as you say, if things can be done in advance, absolutely. And again, I'll need to probably do a bit of a revisit on the subgroups because some are working well, some aren't, and it's all lost its way a bit. But again, that's part of the comms work as well. So, but yeah, point taken. And it is also noted that people, if they do want to have their names put on the town council website, saying that I'm on the subgroup, we need to ask their permission before we do so. Some might not want to do that. But you're right, and it's all part of revisiting the web page anyway, getting the name of the web page, and then it starts linking with the developments and what have you. So, okay, moving on to the next one, recreation ground.
Touch a bit of paper. I was tasked to look at the steps needed to move the skateboard park forward. Having looked at siting is going to be the most important thing, because if the recreation ground is going to move forward in the future or change in the future, then we need to make sure the skateboard park isn't going to inhibit anything that's going to be moved in the future. I nearly put develop there, and then I thought if I do that, people would be saying, when are the houses going on? So I have said change, not developed. Until the actual size and place is established, it's very difficult for design and costings, because you're going to fit it in, the bigger the space, the bigger the skateboard park, hopefully. And then once you've got that, you can then go to the costings. We need meetings and discussions with potential users, and that is absolutely essential. For want of another word, I've been having quite a few chats with the young people over there, and I was asked to put forward, Andy, are you listening? Because you're the one that's hopefully going to do this. They want a bowl. And one of the young men, and he was a young man, said, could we make sure that children on scooters could use it, because a lot of children on scooters use the old one, and also BMXs. And those were the requests that came through, you know, from just chatting to them.
Just a wheel park rather than just a skate park.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, quite. That's an easier way of putting it, isn't it? There needs to be meetings with people that are going to use it. All ages, from all areas. Also, there are different funding streams, but for that you need a constitution, you need a committee, you need to know where you're going, and then that they can be tapped into. You'll need planning permission from Breckland, and they will consult with others. So there's a lot to be done and a lot going on. As most people around this table know, I'm passionate about the skateboard park, but as two of my fellow councillors objected me taking the lead, I'm now standing down from that committee.
I was going to say, can you just clarify what's
Yeah, from
Okay. Can I just suggest, first of all, we don't have a committee yet in recreation grounds, so.
sorry. Oh,
Yes.
standing down from that, whatever. I'm not doing it.
Okay,
It's,
all right.
it's
No,
the way you
well-
want it.
I'm sorry to hear that, but your decision remains, you know,
Yeah.
do keep involved because you are a key link. Yes, Taylor.
Yeah, so two things. Firstly, I was going to say now some of the youth or some of the users have been approached. Would it be worthwhile inviting them to perhaps our next AMP meeting? To obviously to openly discuss, you know, initial ideas. And secondly, the year before last, when the work was being done to the skate park to obviously fix and improve it, I don't really know what it was. Michelle from the YAB was actively involved in the communication with kids as well. So I don't know if it was worthwhile getting in contact with her and saying, this project that we were talking about 2 years ago is now back up and running. Do you want to be involved? Do you want to bring the kids along? Because as well, when she attended the meetings with the children, do you know what I mean? I feel like they had quite a powerful voice. So
She's just coming back off maternity leave back this week, so I've let her
yeah.
settle in first. Yeah.
Can I just respond to that? I mean, absolutely. I mean, careful thought needs to be put out there in terms of how do we take this forward. So if it becomes a project, you have a project lead, a project manager who's involved, what I think. So there's quite a bit of homework to do on that. But secondly, can I suggest, rightly, as we said, the AMP, that it should be the sports and community facilities subgroup that do this. So if there are some members of our younger generation wish to give their initial thoughts, and it should go through that subgroup, and that subgroup should be reported to this committee. Has anyone got any objections?
Could I just ask who's on that subject? Is that the same one that's,
It's Nicola McKinnon. the-
well, I object strongly. I know I'm putting my head above the parapet, it shouldn't. However many excuses you've given, I sat on how long I've been sitting here, I have not seen Nicola or a representative on this committee in that time, and I'm very
Can I
scared that
just-
if we add for it, and all excuses about work I accept, but if you can't do it, then you're much better to step down and let somebody else take it on. And I think that I would not agree to it until that committee is actually reorganised and we hear from them.
Okay,
I really do feel very
just,
strongly about, because you're letting the people down and the children.
okay, if I can just respond to that, I think that should be up to the subgroup to decide that. Karen McAleese did attend the previous meeting, representing the subgroup, so it's not actually correct that no one attended. Nicola has spoken about she's got a lot of work. We said, well, let's discuss it. So she totally accepts that. We're trying to find a way of someone else taking it on board. But as you all know, there's not that many volunteers out there that are willing to do this, so we keep on perpetually trying to sort it out. So it is noted by the subgroup.
What
It
I'm
will be
suggesting-
discussed, and your points have been noted.
It's
that
not a
it's up to the
personal criticism.
subgroup. No,
Let's just
no.
say this clearly. It's not a personal criticism of an individual. What I'm saying is if a group is not functioning well, it's not a time to add another responsibility. You
No.
need to look at where you're going to allocate that to. Not the personalities and the things concerned with that, but whether if a group isn't functioning properly, you don't give it a bigger workload until it's actually got its act together on the workload it's got.
The subgroup is recognising its limitations, and part of future discussions is how does it work better, and putting additional projects onto it. You're quite right, but it is part of that discussion, so it is being action. Yes.
Okay, so I've got 3 points. Okay, firstly, I am somewhat inclined to agree with Elizabeth. Apologies. Secondly, nothing against any of the subgroups. We need them, we do. But I do think, obviously, it has been raised a couple of times now about their terms of reference and their meetings and whether they're minted and everything else. And I think until that's addressed, because as far as I'm aware, they don't even have terms of reference and shouldn't be meeting. We need to put a pin in things just until that's taken care of. Thirdly, I think if it was anything else to do with sports, leisure or outside, I think yes, include them. If it was like the outdoors sports provision or leisure provision or even indoors, anything, I would say yes. But I think because this is so specific, so concentrated, it is the skate park or wheel park, I think it should predominantly be aimed at their users, which is predominantly the youth. Yes, adults do use it as well. But I think we should go directly to the audience that uses it rather than that subgroup in this instance, because actually I think to other sports, it's a little bit irrelevant. I think actually, do you know what I mean? Does anyone understand what I'm saying?
Okay, can I just answer that final one? At no stage was it said that the youth wouldn't be engaged. What I'm saying is, yes, they should be targeted. They are the users. However, the way we set the aim up last year, we've had many discussions about this, of the subgroups take the lead, take the roles, and it becomes a funnel. The committee doesn't take over. We allow those that want to be involved and those on the subgroups to take the lead to community led, and we're trying that. Whether it's working or not is a valid question. That's what we need to review. And maybe at the next meeting, if you wish, we'll put it to the agenda of saying, are these subgroups working? Yes, no, what do you get any ideas how to deal with it? However, in terms of how we engage with the users, whoever they may be, absolutely, they will be first protocol. All I'm suggesting is if we're following what we approved last year with the NP, that feeds through the subgroups. That's all I said. I think that's still valid unless the committee decides to do otherwise. And that's entirely true. Yes, sir.
I think we're going to call it a wheel park. I like that idea.
Yes, I
actually.
do.
Rather than a skate park. One is we sidestep and it rebrands this historic thing that we're doing. I like the idea of wheel park. That is it. I'm not opposed to these subgroups because I have seen firsthand what they're doing and I do know what they've got on their plate, particularly London Road and other things. I don't mind them feeding into it, but I do think with Vera stepping aside as the lead on that project, we need a lead set from this committee now to take this forward and directly engage both with the subgroup, but also with, Yab and Michelle and the others there. So, because we've got to drive that forward. It's one of our big ticket delivery projects we put our name to. And I think it's something that we could potentially do is assign a lead to that even tonight. And we could set up between now and the next meeting an on-site informal consultation. So we set up a date for young members of the community to go up to the rec. Let's have a walk around. Let's have a think about viable sites up there. Let's earmark something that we can bring back to the next meeting. We can say, okay, we've identified, shall we say, 1, 2, 3, whatever else, sites. What do we reckon? Let's have a look at the viability of this and move forward, because I think that way we kind of get the best of both worlds. You do get the linking, but you also get the drive that we need to deliver this at the moment, because we do need this driven. That's my thoughts on it.
Yes, Joe.
You've got London Road and the recreation ground. And what I can see of the subcommittee at a moment, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking them a plate that they're being involved, but they're very sport-minded. London Road is supposed to be an open area for kiddies, families to sit and enjoy. That's what I thought London Road was going to be. But all of a sudden we got basketball, football club, involved in designing or whatever, trying to do something like London Road. Just don't seem right to me.
Can I just kind of come in there a little bit? Yeah, perhaps we haven't quite explained that right, and that might be down to lack of communication between what we're doing. London Road is one of many parks that we have within Attleborough as a whole. And what we're trying to do is look at the overall resources and sites that we have and see if we can theme them better to better accommodate the needs of the community, wider than the small sports community. But one of the things on the back of what we're doing with the sports group and their consultation of what they're doing is that it will feed into conversations that we'll have with Homes England and wider discussions about bigger ticket items, such as artificial pitches and other bits and pieces and facilities. So we are overlapping this. This isn't them looking at London Road per se, more as a blanket thing, so that each of the parks and the green spaces that we have within our community can be themed to suit the needs and better accommodate, rather than trying to do a little bit on each of the parks that is okay. We'd rather have some parks that do exceptionally well on one thing and another thing. Good places to visit, attract different parts of the demographics within Attleborough itself. So that's kind of feeding into it. It's noted, but I do think, getting back to the wheel park, and that is going to be going in the minutes in the focus, is we do need to appoint a lead, because otherwise it's not going to get driven forward. And we do need to engage between now and our next meeting on the site to identify locations that we can potentially have, because that starts the wheels moving. Okay.
Can I just give you some reassurance? With regards to London roads, it's not a case of sports groups are designing it, because the lead,
That's maybe a figure of speech, Ed, but.
no, but I'm just trying to give reassurance. What they've done is talk to parents. We've got young kids. They've been to other play areas elsewhere outside Attleborough. So it is very much, it's a play area, an open space area, and that's what their focus is, not what the football club want to do with it or anyone else. And it's also, of course, as Bill said, the record of different discussion, other areas will be different discussions as well. So they have taken the principle, and that's what we're working on. It's a community open space play area. How can we make this work in, with evidence from talking to groups and other people and parents? Yes, Dennis.
As a councillor, I haven't seen anything, of what they've been asking or who they've been asking, where the survey's been done. I live in that area. Nobody's been to my house. Could you direct me to somewhere where I can see, what they've been doing, where they've been gathering, or how they've been gathering the information?
Yeah.
That's kind of the next stage, because what we're doing is coordinating consultation with relevant groups in the area. So once it's gone from specific groups, it goes to the general public.
So no public's been asked yet?
It's not public.
No, it's not. There's no public consultation being done yet, because there's no project
I've got it,
to
yeah.
consult on. What they've been doing is trying to find out, this has been explained earlier, what groups are in the town, what community groups are there, what toddler groups are there, what sports group, whatever groups are out there, because no one really knows. First of all, establishing that, then establishing from them what are your current needs, what are your aspirations, what would you like to do, why can't you do it, what would you like to do, what do you need to do it. So basically, we're then getting the whole evidence for the town and every conceivable, and it can be old people's groups, youth groups, toddlers groups, are just generally pointing all over. So what they've been focusing on, and they've spent a lot of time on it, is trying to establish evidence of what groups are out there, what are the needs, what's lacking, what are the gaps. Then this committee can sit around and say, how do we fill those? What's the best way of doing it? So that's one of the big things they've been doing, and that evidence is totally lacking in terms. We've taken that on board and they're doing that, but I'll get that information for you.
Well, if you just send me the minutes from the meeting, and then I'll be able to see it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
You said about taking the lead on skateboard park. I don't know how busy you are, Andy, but I would like to propose that Andy takes that, because if he's designing it and knows what he's doing, he's designing before, it seems to me the obvious person. I don't know if you've got the time to do that, Andy. It is a proposal, yeah. It is a proposal.
I think carefully on for you. So yes.
It is a proposal. I'm only talking about the wheeled park, nothing else.
Well, okay, I think the general discussion is, regardless of subgroups, I think there is worthy a discussion on the functionality, even the establishment of subgroups going forward. That's the next meeting after. But my understanding from this discussion is you want a project group set up for the rec.
I think at this stage, the rec is going to feed into it from the consultation that is going to take place, which we've got all that data together. But I think certainly for the wheel park,
It's a wheel park.
the wheel park is a project in and of itself.
So a project team, I know it sounds very bureaucratic, but actually you do need these things to make them work. A project team to take forward early stages, the wheel park.
And we have to look after that.
Thank you.
Is that the proposal?
Yes, that Andy takes, the wheel park,
Andy Lee.
which was all I was looking at, the wheel park.
If he's happy, I'll second it.
Oh, good.
So can I just be clear? So that's the proposal.
Sorry, can I just be clear, is it a team or are we just appointing Andy as the
And he's the
lead?
lead in particular.
Then you can think how
It's
you
got to be a team.
It's got to be a team. Okay.
We're happy to look at the wider issues around the rec.
I think you need,
Okay.
okay, what I suggest is, if we can just get this done, so you're proposing it,
Yeah. I'm
Bill
proposing
seconded it. To Andy, take the lead on taking this forward and progressing it, the wheel park only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's happy, can have a vote, hands in the air. Unanimous. I think you just need to go away and have a careful think about how this is going to work. And there are going to be cost implications on this as well. So I think it's working the project out
Yeah.
and everything else, and we'll come back at the next committee on this.
And I would recommend, from the conversation, and something I've made a comment on a couple of times now is, it may be as well to communicate some sort of informal liaison up at the site.
Yeah, definitely.
So we can get that done ready for the next meeting. Just to keep it going.
And a couple of members of staff at work are interested as well.
There you
You
go.
said you had something.
Yeah.
We'll go inside more.
Excellent. Okay, conscious of time. Moving on. Thanks for that, Andy. I put the 20-minute neighbourhood on again. I was going to come back with a proposal, but I thought it was a bit premature. But my view is this is a concept that we, the town council, should embrace and take forward. And the reasons I say that is we've discussed it with Homes England, the 100% enthusiastic behind it. It fulfills all the government objectives and sustainability. We've spoken to Norwich Road developers, they're very keen to support it. But also what it does do, I'm conscious the neighbourhood plan is not fully understood by people. And it really isn't. And even tonight, there's different views on it. What this does, it provides an umbrella that is tangible. The pillars, the 7 pillars of 20 neighbourhood plan are pretty much the same as the neighbourhood plan. So there's no changes, there's no rewriting, there's no new policies. But what it does do is bring in the local economy. And unfortunately, Val Watson around who we're going to invite to the events committee, the district councils will know as well. They've got European money for regionally looking at how do we do events, local economies do drink, and this fits right under that in terms of supporting local economies, local markets, and everything else. So what I'd like to do is go away, and I will come back at the next committee with a proposal of one, why we should do this and what the implications are, what the positives are. But the fact that Homes England are saying we will fully back it, why would you not do it? Chimes quite a bit. And I think we need to find new ways of doing things. So input on that. Yes, sir.
I know that we were discussing about TCPA coming along and doing a presentation on the nights, which agreed out because my
Do that
Joel's
as well,
been
yeah.
here from Homes England, representing Homes England. We're able to ask questions. It may be worthwhile doing that as part
Yeah.
of the proposal so that we get a greater insight into it, so you can get it from the horse's mouth, as it were, as to what this does, because it does add significant weight and coordination and delivery to our discussions when we're talking about the bigger impacts of infrastructure and community sites when we are discussing things with Homes England and developers on London Road, which we had a conversation today, it was one of those conversations. It's an umbrella that people understand in the planning world and can get behind. And it just allows us to deliver what we've always wanted to do with the neighbourhood plan without having to go alone.
And what it does do, for instance, walking and cycling routes, it promotes those, it markets those, it develops them and further principles, as well as green infrastructure. That is another core principle. So back to the linear park, open spaces, play areas, planting, woodland, etc. It's all in there. And what it does, it brings expert resourcing from elsewhere in the country that we can utilize.
I don't want to always be the devil's advocate, and I am being here. Could you just, I'm Joe Public, I'm sitting there and I'm going up to his stall, I'm hearing what's going on. How am I, as a member of Academy, going to you haven't convinced me yet with your explanation, how am I going to discriminate or discern the difference between the Attleborough Neighbourhood Plan and a 20-minute plan, which is saying exactly the same things, exactly the same structure? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I think it's a very good thing, but I think it would be wiser to try and sell it as part of try and not make something completely new, because I think your people just lose faith. You know, you talk about green infrastructure, that was the whole core of something like a linear park. And what's the difference? What is the difference between a 20-minute town and a neighbourhood plan? As Joe Public, I'm sitting here.
Joe Public is neighbourhood plan is a planning document. The 20-minute plan or neighbourhood is about coordinating the key stakeholders to deliver it.
Now that makes sense, but that's how you have to sell it.
That's
Not as a 20, and not because people put a lot of effort into the neighbourhood plan. And I think I think the core issues are the same, but I think you'd be in great danger of total disinterest by trying to start another big scheme that is.
I completely agree. And the only reason that sold it on me is it's our best hope of delivering the neighbourhood plan.
That makes sense.
No, point taken. Thank you. Any other questions on that? As I say, perhaps the next meeting, I've been in touch with the TCPA, see if they're available. That will be key to it, the proposal. Okay, moving on to any other business. If I may kick off, again, this is transparency. Myself had a meeting with Norwich Road developers this morning. They wanted a quick catch up before they come to full council in October with the revised plan for Day B, which is the main bit closest to the town. It was a productive meeting. It was positive. We gave them our views on open space requirements, play requirements. Key thing was to ensure that they do put in the revised plan an access road from the divides into the triangle bit of land behind the academy, which, if you recall, is now, Michelle, you note this, chase this up, in the 106, 3 parts owned by the town council, 1 part owned by the academy. So it's basically public ownership. What we don't want to do is put a plan in, put a road network in, and there is actually no road access into the site. So we've got them to note that and include that. It was spoken about the play area. We also spoke to them about decoy common and connecting into that. Now, they are putting footways along the frontage of their development, so the north side of Norwich Road going out to town. What we asked for, and it wasn't asked, they're not obliged to do it, but we can see the benefits of, could they contribute to putting a footway in from Mill Lane into the access road to Decoy Common, because at the moment it's just grass verge. Because that benefits their residents as well, and it connects them to open space. What we also discussed was, and this is really difficult for many reasons, but is there a way to punch over the A11 the pedestrian access. I do see people walk and cycle over there regularly. It's just a racetrack. It's so dangerous. I've done it a couple of times. I'm not going to do it again. But that's a discussion with highways and highways England. If we can put a footway that leads into all the fields that go towards the new college. Because what Astra is, we've got loads of lovely countryside around it, but we can't access it. If you think about it, there's no way to punch into the countryside we've got around our town safely, unless you're going to come. So it was productive. I don't know if any other.
No, it was really great because, like with Homes England, in the sense, we're having these pretty conversations and speaking the same language. We've got the same sort of aspirations and we're getting our line together. It was one of those productive conversations where access to that piece of land, access to other areas, and making sure that where we can plug in to what's happening on the site for green space and the park provision that they have, that we can have as much input as we can. And it was just allowing that communication. It's good having those conversations now before they get too far into the detailed technical application, at which point the developers have made the commitment and we have very little input. So we're having those conversations on the right side of the line rather than just getting what we're doing at the end of it, which is what's happened elsewhere.
Can I just add to that? We spoke about the play areas and open space areas to put in developments. What we've agreed, they were a bit confused with how Brecon had dealt with it, with the outline and what normally happens doesn't quite fit with what's been agreed and what's not being agreed. And it's all a bit confusing. Good luck counting the phone call. I think you found that with the outline as well. It doesn't quite sit with what normally happens in other planning authorities. But what we've agreed is the actual detailed design and the needs of the play areas, play equipment can be agreed at the reserve matter stage. So I've said, we've got these subgroups, whatever they might want to call it, we want to call them in the future. But we'd like the community to be involved in designing that so we don't get another repetition of turning. And they're happy to do that. And that will agree that with conditions with Brecon. So I think for the first time, in my experience being on this town council, we've actually had a positive meeting and being able to directly input into the development, which is what we should have been doing for years, but it's never happened. And long may it continue themselves. So progress is being made. It's slow, but progress is being made.
Who's the developer?
It's currently. The other thing is because they're a housing association, they've said, they're not only building it, they've looked after the houses, so they're here for the long term. So from being a good neighbour, they do want to work with us. Unlike Orbit, I don't think we've had any discussions at all with Orbit. They've just built it at the moment. Okay, so there's that. The other one, which I'll just touch on, I don't want to go into a debate on it, but I think you all saw the email from George Freeman a week ago, 2 weeks ago, on his aspirational triangular research global vision, Silicon Valley Norfolk. This actually follows on from a meeting we Phil had with him a while ago about the aspirations for Attleborough, A11 Tech Corridor, fundamental neighbourhood, want to do things differently, we want to promote the town. And he's got his own exciting ideas and it's starting to coalesce together now, which is great. So, at least he's picked it up as having George on board is good. Hopefully we can.
We've got a meeting set up with him in about a week or two's time. Yeah, so in a little while's time, we've got a meeting set up with him where we can just talk about vision and try and align these things, because if we can get the technical and the political alignment together on these things, the probability of delivery increases exponentially.
So that's more for information from this stage. And then finally, I know Mary Ridgway kindly sent a note through today that I think was distributed to you all. Joel, what I'm going to do is pass this on because most of it is pertinent to the delivery part. I'm just asking the questions we've probably asked for years actually, but now we're in some stage of at least being able to answer some of it.
Yeah. That'd be
if
great.
that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That's fine, thanks. I think that was me at this stage. Anyone else got any business or questions, even Nigel? Anyone else? Take this
I'd
opportunity.
like to go back to recreation ground, if you can.
Yeah.
Strike me down, God, please. There's an awful lot to talk about skateboard parks. But what about the rest of it? There was squinting at my very small screen, because I haven't got an agenda printed. On the last minute, there was something mentioned about the 2018 plan being a foundation document. I don't recall that. I don't recall what it looked like, what was in that document. Is there?
We'll get that on. Sorry, Chair.
I think it's already available on the town council
Is it?
website, but I think it's hard to find.
Ah.
I circulated a copy at the last meeting to committee members. I could send Michelle a copy and she could put it on the website again.
Definitely.
Maybe
It
try and
would be
find, like,
useful.
try and put it somewhere
Yeah.
that is easy
Yeah.
to find.
Yeah.
Because I remember coming here years ago, and someone did a presentation, and that was a vision for the recreation ground, not just the skateboard park.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, it looks really, really good. If that's the vision for it, and fantastic. I will now double back to the skateboard park, and yes, please do involve the users, but don't leave it too long before you involve people who live around the thing. Because I don't want to go back 20 years and do what my parents did and bitterly object to get walked over. Don't do that to anybody else, and don't make me do it again. So engage everybody now, please.
Well,
Is my
what I'd like
comment.
to, what I'd like to suggest, and this is good practice, which you'll know about, Joel, and again, we talk about local firms in England is, but when you set any project up, specific, you do agree an engagement, communication, consultation strategy. So this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is why we're doing it, and these are the groups. So, we agree that, and it's not, we've spoken to them and we've missed someone and you're catching up all the time.
So then when the original plan was put in, it wasn't supposed to go where it did. It was supposed to go somewhere else. I don't know if that somewhere else is now in the game plan. Is it worth going back and looking at it? Don't know.
The plan that was done in 2018, and the reason that I circulated it to everyone is because I don't want to see it be money wasted, because I think, from memory, it cost us about £5,000. So I don't want that to be £5,000 that the town council spent unnecessarily, when it was only if you take out the pandemic, like a year or two ago, like tops. So, but where it is at the moment, where it's cited at the moment on that plan is further towards the back. So not right against the far corner.
Yeah.
A little bit further forward, but over that way.
That could have been the original site that Brecon had suggested. I don't know. I wasn't here when that happened. But is that site on the list for consideration again?
Well, I mean, the starting point is site assessment. There's a whole raft of reasons of one, geology, drainage, location to neighbours, lighting, noise.
With respect, they did all that and they still put the bloody thing where it is. So I've been there, done all that bit.
But I think,
excuse the skepticism.
no, I know, but the discussion with me and Andrew have spoken about this. That's the process we'll be going, because you've got to justify the site.
No, I totally agree.
But you're right, to do it properly.
Even though I'm not known to strap on my skateboard that often, I would still like for the neighbours to get involved, because it was a bit of a, oh Christ.
Yeah.
Just take the sting out of the tail now if we can. Because if not, just get on with it.
Agreed.
Right.
Totally agree.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Just to say, there's a quick update. The draft now has been completed on the first half of the plan by UEA on our health project. It brought up some very interesting health issues in the town and surrounding villages, and they're about to commence on the second half of it. A lot of the information you've been talking about needing is actually in there, and you will get a copy. in terms of what groups and clubs and that was also done in the neighbourhood plan very comprehensively. I think if we look back in the neighbourhood plan, the town guide always has a lot of the, seems to have the majority of what's actually going on in the town. There are things getting missed out, but that will be, and you obviously will get a copy of that as the town council, that document when it's published, but the draft now has been completed, so I think we'll have the first document out very soon.
Thank you, well done. Well done again for all the work you do. Okay, if there's no, yes. Sorry.
In an observation, I've been squinting at a very small screen. I know you can't hand out printed documents. Is there any way you could display the gender impact? Do you have like an overhead projector, anything like that, so we can follow it? Just an observation generally for your
Good point.
meetings. If not, have a squint at a very small screen.
Looking at potential communication. with,
Or, thank you.
No, good point though.
To be fair, a screen or projector would be handy in here, Phil, wouldn't it?
It would, we have got a screen somewhere.
Yeah,
but
just- I mean,
I don't believe
I don't have an internet signal either, so it's very patchy. I don't know what Wi-Fi is here, but it's not always easy to expand the screen and read the bit that you want to read.
Do we have a whiteboard?
Well, I think we need to, because it's something I've thought about. If TCPA were to attend, they'd probably want to do it virtually rather than rocking up from London for half an hour or whatever. And I think trying to engage with key stakeholders in the future, you know, what the pandemic has done is actually opened up accessibility to people because they quite have to sit by the laptop for half an hour, either at home or wherever, and engage rather than spend 3 hours traveling and sit for half an hour, 3 hours back. So I think going forward soon, we can look at that and actually.
The people who it's useful because
Yeah.
at the moment we don't have paper documents,
Yeah.
trees. So it will be useful for us to follow the flow of the meeting, shall we say, and the points that are being made,
Yeah, that's good.
just generally.
That's something we can look at. Yeah, good point.
Cool, thank you.
Bill's already on. Yes.
I just forwarded the link, it is a link to the website for the recreation grant.
Yeah, no problem.
And also a transport study as well that I circulated to everyone last month.
Okay.
I've just sent it to you and I copied in the office as well.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly if that happening here on Thursday with Home in England, those sort of documents, if they're available on the website prior to this sort of thing happening, that would be very useful.
No, good point. Cool. Yes, Elizabeth.
Small comment that is purely whimsical. At the last meeting, Taylor brought up the subject of the road alterations, which you criticised and I find very helpful, and of the and particularly the cycle path down the London Road, and we discussed cycling access. And you've also talking now about wheels. There's a close link. All of you ought to just borrow a bike to cycle on that cycle path because it is joy. It's like the whole BMX Olympics being relived because it's taken on as it's settled the undulation of the road, and you can go at terrific speed. I can even lift my wheel off. It's actually working. It's very safe and very good, and it's very well used because you keep having to apologise for dangerous old ladies on bikes with all these pushchairs and things, and it's worth adding hugely to the social welfare of the town.
Well said. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, if there are no other comments, going, Joe. Yep.
Yeah, just one thing for Phil, really. Have you heard any more from County Breck and the lamppost in town?
No, I will chase them up tomorrow for you, Joe,
Thank you.
but that will.
You know, I
be
don't,
about my
obviously that's not going to
That'll be
happen
about
this
my
year.
20th time, but I will.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's not going to happen this year because county don't work that quick. But next year I'd like to see that, if I'm still here, the decorations on the lamppost rather than being powered from the lamppost more than they have been. Please.
I'll raise that again.
There's a person now, because who my brother used to deal with at Cannes. He's moved on. I don't know whether he's still in Cannes, but there's another name which is R.B. Woodyard. He's the area for Attleborough. But I haven't got an email address for.
I'll make a note.
Okay. Yeah, all right, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Right, okay, well, thank you all very much. Joel, again, thanks very much for
No,
coming
thank
all the
you,
way
Dan.
over here. We'll try and get the Zoom stuff done for you next time.
Don't worry.
So,
I missed half time, so it's happy.
and thanks for anyone who's watching at home. The next meeting will be Monday, the 18th of October. At 7 o'clock. So thank you again.